Welcome, 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 people. Hey, how y'all doing today? Yo, we having our 3E dialogue, and we having several different guests today. And today, right at this moment, my very special guest, which you're gonna hear a lot about him in a very near few seconds. But this is a wonderful person, a human being that does stuff that helps a lot of people in Skid Row. And his name is Mr. Leeav Sofer, Artistic Director of the Urban Voices Project. So how you doing today, sir?
Hey, Bobby, it's good to see you, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, man, thank you for taking time out. You know what I'm saying? Because, whenever I can catch you, I know that it's very slim chance of happening.
Well, I appreciate that. It's the life of an artist, right? You're just running around all the time.
Oh, man, I tell you, man. And I tell you, like when I ran into you, man, it's like, I felt your energy and your spirit, and I like how you do what you do. And
Thank you.
How you work so hard to help the community of Skid Row with the Urban Voices Project, with people singing and giving their testimonies.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, yes, man. And then, like I said, with me doing the 3E dialogue, so it's like I ask people, which one is your favorite, or you want to talk about one, two, or all three, but it's about economics, entertainment, and education. And so I know you're an educator.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about with all three of those. And, I'm trying to think about how it works into the work I do, and and the people in Skid Row and the people that I've had the pleasure of learning from. And I think it actually really does tie all together really beautifully, especially when it comes to, we're working on, in Urban Voices Project, we're working on art all the time. We're working on music, right?
Right.
But we're also working specifically with people that have had the hardships, socioeconomic, real hardships. We're talking about on the streets, people who are going back through programs to re-enter them back into society after losing everything, right? And so I use education, music education, to teach people art, to get them through those socioeconomic hardships as far as a sense of purpose, as a new motivation. And by feeling that you have a sense of voice again, a voice where most of the time when people are dropped down into the streets, they feel like they are invisible. Nobody wants to talk to them. Nobody wants to hear their voice. So when you step into a room, and not only does everybody want to hear your voice, they're pulling that voice out of you. They want you to sing side by side. They want you to share a solo. They want you to just be in the room and in the moment, and everything else could just be left at the door. I think that it's important just right there to show how education, teaching of people how to use their voice, which is the entertainment part, the art, is helping people out of socioeconomic hardship. And I think that right off the bat, that's like a little nutshell version of how the work that we do in Urban Voices Project is trying to tackle all three of those.
Yeah, and that's why I tell people, like with me, like when I first came down there, and like the experience that I went through, and the personal and the physical and the mental effects of it and everything. It's like when I was there, I lived at the Union Rescue Mission, and I was always seeing everybody around there, like kept on repeating, coming back. And it was in my spirit, like I want to be able to do something, to come up with a way that I can intrigue people to want to do something different, something better.
Right.
But at the same time, I was homeless, so it's like, how can I do this? How can I do this? But that's why I tell people, Skid Row brought me to my true spirituality. And then I decided how to walk.
You did the same thing, if you think about it. I mean, you're doing it with video production, film production, and journalism, which is in its own form, its own art, And with your film production and journalism, and the way you've lifted up the voices of the people around you, and I've seen you many times. You're an educator at heart. You're at the soul of it. You like sharing people so that they can help, not to just help them, but to help themselves, So I've that same spirit of the educator comes through you as well, and I've seen that, and I really, really admire it too. I think that that's like, something about education, which is not just about like, general education or university education or just teaching professional skills education. I was even thinking about it lately this year, is like, with all of the protests going on, all of the time and the yelling and screaming to get people to wake up a little bit this year to some really new progressive ideas and for real change. even that is a form of education. We have to educate ourselves to know what is happening to our neighbors who, especially for the people who aren't aware, people who have been shutting their eyes or ignorant to what's going on in Skid Row or what's going on with people of color. They have to educate themselves. They have to go search for education. Someone always says to me, it's not about calling people out, it's about calling people in. And when you call them in, again, you're actually inviting them to be educated, inviting them to learn about what's going on. What is that economic hardship and the inequalities that are affecting your fellow, if for those living in Los Angeles, your fellow Los Angeles, but honestly, this happens all over America from wherever you're watching this interview, I'm sure.
Right. And I know, like with with us crossing paths here and there with different events and everything, it's always good to see somebody familiar from Skid Row that's out and about also. And we got so many different people, so many. I tell people how I look at Skid Row is you got a community full of a whole bunch of different superheroes.
Yes,
so many dynamic characters, so many dynamic.
And they. You know, what's funny is when you come through it and you come through the lived experience and then you're out in the world, you're holding on to so much. Okay. Like, check this out. There's a pressure. Okay. So Urban Voices Project is started as a choir. Now we have music programs, a lot expanded beyond that. And we're even trying to do them virtually now in COVID. But, when we were out performing a lot, you know, we would go out and perform for conferences, for festivals, for what have you, and a lot of times it's pulling us out of the Skid Row neighborhood. And people hired us, they booked us because they hoped and asked for us to not only sing and inspire, but also to advocate and educate, right? So we're coming out of Skid Row with stories of what it was like to be on the street, story of homelessness, but really stories of humanity. I mean, that's what we were trying to do, is focus on the stories of humanity, you know? And that's just the setup to what I was about to say. What I thought is interesting is when we go out there and I talk to the choir members, and they're all people who have had lived experience, and they're all now professional artists getting ready to take the stage. I say, and we all said this to each other, we all agreed on this like mantra, or these agreements. We said, you know, we have to have an extra pressure on our shoulders, not times 1, times 2, but times 3. 1, we are representing ourselves. When we take a stage and we have the audience watch what's going on, we're representing our own voice, our own experience, and our own impression. And that's some pressure right there as a performer, as an entertainer, as someone who has to use your voice to hopefully change the world, whether it's inspire, teach, it doesn't matter. 2, you are now representing, because we were on ensemble, meaning that a choir ensemble of like 20, 25, 30 people, you're representing each other. It's a team effort. And I think it's the same thing, even for other people, even if they're not part of this ensemble, you're still representing your neighbors, you're representing your neighborhood, you know, you're representing your community in a way, right? But then 3, we always would talk about how we have this third burden, and just the fact that we came through Skid Row, because of that, we now have the burden of all of homelessness on our shoulders. When we talk, when we entertain, when we teach, people are looking at us, and they're going to, as much as they shouldn't do it, many of them can't help but judge with an absolute. Judge by seeing our impression as a representation of the impression of all humans that have gone through lived experience.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is that we have to be self-aware that people are looking at us with that in mind. And when we go and sing to inspire and try to go out there and just kick ass, you know, it's because we know that it's not just ourselves, it's not just our teammates, it's also a whole concept of a whole community of people that have been felt either seen as invisible or seen as less than human. Right. And now we have to represent them, and we almost have to prove its humanity. And so it's a lot of pressure. And when you said that, you know, when there's artists and they're out in Skid Row and they're working about, it's like, I think that anybody who's an artist that's come through takes on that same different levels, you know, and they carry that with them a little bit. And it's something powerful, but it's also like, in a weird way, it's like you're almost like responsible with something that you never asked for too.
Right, right.
Very interesting.
No, it is, man. It's very, like I tell people, I mean, you know, I come from the Bible Belt, but Skid Row brought out the spirituality in me. And so, but I'll tell you this, like in closing, so what are your best final words for the people out there watching and listening?
You know what? I'm not sure everybody who's watching and where you're all from and what you know everybody's coming from. So I'm going to try to say something that's generalized. But you know, right now in the times of a lot of conflict, political conflict, right now in the times of the pandemic, and even before 2020, before all these things felt like they were so real, I think that I am an advocate for how art actually amplifies the voice of people in the community and the voice of humanity, whether it has to do anything with homelessness or Skid Row, or whether it has to do with any other kind of disenfranchised community. I think that if you are someone who, you know, is an artist, you have a gorgeous voice, and I think that you should keep pushing your art out there. If you're someone who is new to this, just like everything else, I encourage you to educate yourself and enjoy that process through art and through theater, through music, through every platform you can, and use it. I think that that's the message I have that hopefully can address all three of those E's of yours.
All right. I think you did everything perfectly. Yes. And I'll tell you what, and I really do appreciate you for taking time out. I know you probably had to go jet and then go take care of some more business elsewhere, but I sure appreciate it. And we'll have you back soon.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate you.
All right, y'all. That's it for the dialogue of the 3E's, and we're out.
Bye.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye, y'all.